Hello and welcome to Quick Bytes, the lunchtime live stream with your tech integration specialist, Scott Conway. Thank you for joining me today. As always, if you're joining us live, we do have the Ask a Question feature during the presentation. The URL is at the top. If I switch off of this slide and you have forgotten it or don't have it written down yet, you can always get to it from the staff portal. But today's topic for our session is going to be Gmail navigation and configuration. There's quite a bit to Gmail. So today I want to kind of focus on some of the main features, things to get you up and running if you are newer to Gmail or want a little bit more information about how to be more efficient with Gmail. We're going to show you some of those features today that will help you do that. So let's get right into this. I'm going to show you my training account here. I've already sent a few test emails my way, and I want to use this kind of as the basis of our discussion for today. So you can see that I have 4 emails in there right now. 3 of them are just plain messages, text only. They might have an image embedded in them, but the first one you can see has an attachment with it. I put that in the subject line, but you can also physically see it. So the first thing I want to do is kind of orient you to the layout of Gmail. And for the purposes of today's discussion, we're only going to talk about the desktop version of Gmail. So any laptop, any desktop, any computer, sit down, as long as it's connected to the internet, you can go to Gmail or mail.google.com and you can sign in with your account. And this is what it will look like. All of your settings will kind of come over and your inbox will look just as it did the last time you used it. There is a mobile application for Gmail on both Android and iOS devices. It's a great application and highly recommend it if you are going to be working in your Google world. It is most recommended that you be on the Gmail app when you are on a mobile device. But today's discussion is desktop Gmail only. So starting from the upper left-hand corner, you can see you've got a little menu icon up here, main menu. You can shrink or expand that left-hand menu. Moving down further, you do have the compose button. That is where we're going to start a new message. So if you were to click on that, you would, oops, I double-clicked a little too fast. You would open up a new message right here. You can see you've got your to, and if you click on this, you can actually open up your contacts, and you can pull in from contacts. You also see that you can add a carbon copy or a blind carbon copy. So you can add email addresses into all 3 of these. Moving further down, you have your subject, and then the body of your message here. Now you can notice that I have what's called a signature already embedded in here. We'll show you where to configure your own signature if you'd like. Moving further down, you'll see that I have it. It's always activated for me, I believe, but you have some tools at the bottom. You do have the send, which would immediately send that message. Then to the right of that, you have a little arrow called schedule send. You now have a feature that's default in Gmail that allows you to craft a message ahead of time and then choose a date and time for which it's to send. So if you're a night owl and you're up late, it's 11:30 at night like myself, and you're writing an email, but you don't want it to go out until the next morning at say 9 a.m., you can say schedule and send, and it will allow you to pick the date and the time to do that. Now there's a couple other options here. I have a screenshot tool that's built in because I have an extension called Awesome Screenshot, and it blends into or integrates with Gmail here. So I could take a screenshot and incorporate that into the email. But by default, I have some formatting options here for text. You can see I can pop that open. I do have the ability to attach a file to this message from my local computer. I also have the ability to insert a link. So if I want to send someone a link to a document or a form or another website, I can do that using the insert link function. I do have some emojis that they give me that you can use for fun. I can also insert right from using Drive. And I will say at this point, with you inserting Drive, a Drive element here, a document, a sheet, whatever it is from Drive, Google or Gmail will warn you. if you've inserted something that does not have the correct share settings for your recipients. So it's really intuitive. It will alert you before you send that message. It will tell you, hey, you've got something attached to this Gmail that is not going to be viewed correctly by the recipients. Do you want to update your share settings? And it lets you do it right there. So it's a really nice feature. It's really the only place in the Google world where they will tell you, hey, you're about to send something out and the share settings are not correct. This is the one and only place that happens. You also can insert photos, and you can turn confidential mode on and off. This is something that recently came out from Google. Confidential mode is where you can send something that's encrypted, and then you have to send a follow-up message to give them the decryption key. So if you really want to keep something private and secure, you could do that. There are more options here. You can see, go to default full screen. You can request a read receipt, although read receipts are dependent on the internet service providers, and not all of them use that functionality. You can also print and check spelling. And if you want to discard the draft, simply click the trash icon. And you do need to do that because even though we haven't typed a message here, simply closing the X button here, save and close, it does not delete the message. It will save it and close it, and it will then end up in your draft folder. So if you really want to delete this, you do have to come down to the lower right-hand corner and click Discard Draft. Okay. So that's composing a message. Moving down below that, you have your inbox. Any messages that are starred, and you can see there's a little star function here that you could star them and keep them here if you want. Your sent folder, as I mentioned before, your drafts and your trash. And then down below that are any personal, what we call labels. Gmail calls them labels. They really are folders. But the reason they call them labels in Gmail is that messages can be in more than one label at a time. So unlike a folder where it's in the folder or it's not in the folder, you can only have one item in the folder. Think of the folder at your doctor's office that has those little colored labels on them and their different meanings. That's really what Gmail likes to call them, as labels, because you can have things labeled multiple different ways. And so that's why they go with the term labels. So those are our labels. Moving down, you can see you can click more, scroll down, and you'll get to all mail, which is literally everything in your inbox. So if you're having a hard time finding something, you might want to go to all mail and then do a search in the upper bar. Your spam and your trash your trash was back up here under drafts. I apologize, I skipped over that. And then you have your spam down here, and you can manage labels and create new labels all the way at the bottom. Moving to the right, at the top, you do have the search mail function. Just know that whatever folder you are in or label you are in, I made a mistake myself there. Whatever label you are in, that's where you're going to search. So if you want to search your inbox, make sure you're in your inbox first. If you want to search your sent folder, make sure you're in your sent folder. And you can see that it adjusts. If I'm in my trash, it'll put it there as well. You'll see that it's in there. It says in sent, and that means that's where you're searching. Okay. You can also come down here, click the arrow, and you can get into much more advanced search functionality. From, to, subject, has the words, doesn't have. You can search within all mail, or you can pick your folders from here. Whether or not it has an attachment. Some really neat features. And if you've lost something, search your mail. It is by far the easiest way to find something in mail. If this is something you want to create a filter for, you can do that as well. Once you put your parameters in, you can click Create Filter, and it will save that search criteria for you. And it will filter by that continuously moving forward. And you can choose additional functions. So let's say you want to filter every message that's coming from payroll. You can put in your search parameters and then set up your filter. So every time something comes in from payroll, you can automatically label it. You can automatically star it. There's a lot of different functions you can do. By creating a filter, you can, in essence, cast a net and catch that type of email in the future going forward. And like I said, you could choose to do things with that if you want. So that's the search functionality, and there is an advanced search functionality up here. Moving down towards the middle, you'll see that I have the messages are listed here. And there is a select all, none, read, unread, starred options up here. You can refresh your inbox as well. You can also mark all as read. These will, you'll get more additional features as you click on the messages. You can see there's a little bit of a toolbar across the top now. So I could choose to archive these, which doesn't delete them. It just kind of tucks them away for future reference. You can report as spam, you can delete, you can mark it as read, you can also then mark it as unread. You can snooze this message, which means it'll come back into your inbox. It takes it away, but brings it back at a certain date and time. You can add this to your task list. That's another functionality, another feature, another tool in Google. You can move it to one of these labels if you want to get it out of your inbox. You can also change the label or add a new label so it's in multiple locations. And then you do, again, have additional options here. So I'm going to choose to deselect these. And moving to the right, I want to talk to you about display density. Display density is how your inbox shows to you. Right now it's in default, so you can kind of see a little bit of a snapshot. Like that first email does have an attachment with it, so you can see that. We can also switch to comfortable view and watch what happens. It pulls it in, it shrinks it down a little bit, but you do still know that there's an attachment because out to the right, I can't hover over it, but if you look at it, you can see the little paperclip icon, which means it has an attachment. And if I hover over this, you can see that I do get additional features that allows me to be more efficient. I can archive, delete, mark as read or mark as unread, and then snooze that message right from here. The third option for display density is compact, and that really kind of cinches things up nice and tight. So if you've got a lot of messages and you want to see as many of them as possible, you're going to go to compact. I tend to be right in the middle, comfortable, and that's kind of how I like it. I can still see, like I said, if I have an attachment, the paperclip icon to the right. Moving down, I have configure inbox. Right now, this account that I have is only showing me primary. So every message that I get comes directly into my inbox, and I see everything all in one list. But there is a really neat feature to Gmail that maybe you don't know about, and that's you can also turn on these additional tabs: social, promotion, updates, and forums. And you can see as you hover over them, social, these are messages from social networks, media sharing sites, and so on. Your Gmail inbox is going to intuitively look at the address of the recipient, the sender. It's going to look at the message, it's going to look at the subject line, and it's going to determine automatically where it fits, and it's going to put it into that folder for you, or that tab. Promotion will be deals and offers, other marketing type emails. Updates are going to come from your Google notifications, so calendar notifications. If you have a sheet that is has notifications turned on when something is updated, this is where you'll get your updates. And your forums would be from your blog posts, other types of mailing lists, things like that. And if we click save, you'll see how my inbox changes. And it looks like all of my messages have moved to updates. And I can click across. So what's happening is this: primary is really where your emails from a human are going to come. So the reason we use these tabs, or you would want to use these tabs, is that anything that's coming from a real human should come into your primary, and you address those first and foremost. And anything that's on a social media site, or a promotional advertisement, or an update from somewhere else in the Google world, they're going to come into these other tabs and be formatted as such for the future, so that they kind of are set aside. You deal with the primary, and then when you've got a moment, you can go over and you can check your other tabs. Now, if for some reason something gets moved to a tab and it doesn't really belong, what you do is you just left click hold, you drag it up to that message, or that tab, excuse me, and you drop it. And what we're doing is we're training the inbox right now to remember that anything from this human should come into primary. So you're going to train your inbox to do this, and you can see down at the bottom, do you want to do this for future messages? Yes. So I've now trained my inbox to recognize the fact that anything from a real human should come in primary, and then everything else is going to kind of filtered over. After a few days of this, Gmail is very intuitive and it's figured it out. It's very good. It just does it automatically. So it's got like this automatic sorter that takes effect as your inbox starts to fill up. So it's a really great tool, and that is under the configuration, configure inbox. And if I want, I can turn on some of them. I could turn on them all. I could turn them all off and go right back to just everything comes into one view. I'm going to go to settings, and I'm going to show you there's a ton of settings in here, and I don't want to cover them all. We're coming up on the end of our time anyways. I do want to highlight a few of these under general, and that's about as far as we're going to go today. So a couple things I want to highlight. First of all, undo send. One of the best tools in Gmail. You send a message and you look at it and you're like, oh, I forgot to attach the document, or I forgot to do this, or I forgot to add this line, or I made a misspelling. And as long as you don't click away from that message or you don't delete it right away, it'll stay there for, in this case, I have mine set to 30 seconds. You can click undo within that 30 seconds if you catch it, and you can unsend that message, fix whatever needs to be fixed, and then you can resend it. You'll get another 30 seconds after that. It's a really nice tool. It does give you a variation, 5, 10, 20, and 30 seconds. I throw it on for 30 seconds just to give myself that chance to think. Moving down, send an archive. This is something you want to make sure that you do not have turned on. This is personal preference, but it often confuses people. If it's set to send an archive, what happens is when the person sends the message, it then goes to archive. It does not go to the sent folder, and that throws a lot of people off. So I tend to hide it. I tend to recommend that you hide it. Spelling, I do turn suggestions on. Smart Compose is a really nice tool, something new that they've released, but it does allow for writing suggestions. So it will give you suggested responses based on the text of the message that was sent. And it can just act as a time saver. It does not necessarily need to be used exclusively, and you can certainly ignore it, but the Smart Compose feature is pretty cool. You might want to try that out. Conversation View. This allows you to group all of your email messages together in one conversation as opposed to having them all come in as separate. So it's like a threaded response. And then I want to get down to the signature. I mentioned this before. You saw my signature. This is where you would configure your signature. You can type into this text box. You can even insert images. And that's where you kind of activate your signature line so that every message that goes out, it's going to put that in there automatically for you. So it's less you have to type. And the last thing I'm going to talk to you about is the vacation responder. At the very bottom of the general settings page is your vacation responder. You can turn that on, give it a first day and an end date optional. You put your subject and then your message. And then at the bottom, you can say, I only want to send this response to people in my contact list. So any known contacts, it only goes to them. Everyone else gets no response. They just assume you're there and you're ignoring them. Or you can also choose, if you're in an organization, only send a response to the people in your organization. And that's nice because anybody that you work with is going to get that. And they're going to get it once every 3 days. So if you're gone longer than 3 days and they send you another message 3-4 days down the road, they will get another message after that 3-day mark. So they won't get it every single time. Excuse me, I correct myself. I just looked up here and it caught my eye. It's once every 4 days. So it used to be 3 days, now it's 4 days. So once every 4 days, that way they're not hit with it every single time. And then one thing you do need to remember is at the bottom of this page, if you make any changes, you do need to click Save Changes. I know there's very few places in the Google world where you actually have to click Save, but this is one of them. So always make sure you click Save at the bottom. I go back to my inbox, and that is the brief overview of the navigation and getting around Gmail, as well as some configuration tools that you can use to make it more user-friendly and easier for you to navigate, get around Gmail and utilize it. So I hope you've enjoyed this session. I don't see any questions coming in at this point. So I thank you for joining me today, and I hope you join us for our next session.